I'm Lindsey Burden, a business coach who helps ambitious business owners build businesses that work for them, not the other way around. Now, if you are a business owner, you'll already know how rewarding it can be, but also how isolating and overwhelming at times. With so much information out there, it's incredibly easy to get lost and sometimes hard to know where to focus your attention. That's why I created this playlist, Expert Insights. Short, practical conversations with my trusted experts, packed with actionable tips and strategies you can implement. Whether you're navigating a specific challenge or just looking for a fresh perspective, there's something here for every stage of your business journey. Make sure you subscribe to be notified when the next episode drops. Today, I have the absolute pleasure of chatting, if I could get my words out, to Lee Lam, your startup partner. And if you're thinking, Lindsey, you really should have moved the Christmas decorations, I should have done actually, because now you all know that we're recording this in December, but maybe this is the perfect time to be having this conversation. Now, before we get started, Lee, I just want to tell everyone a little bit about you, if I may. So Lee, you are a business strategist working with startups and growing businesses. And you started your startup partner 9 years ago after a long career in financial services technology, primarily in COO and chief of staff roles. And you use your experiences of running larger businesses to help new businesses get ready for growth. And it says here that you watch way too much YouTube and need to walk your pet pug more. So maybe there is a resolution there for you.
Yes, yeah. I mean, it's already teed up for me right there.
I've done the work for you. Just don't start it in January because nobody ever carries on with anything.
No, absolutely not. I'll wait till February.
Now, we have got a particular thing we want to talk about, but I just want to pick up something that from that introduction, actually. So you have worked with larger businesses.
Yeah.
And you take that expertise and that knowledge and you help startups and smaller businesses with growth in mind. Now, I always say it doesn't really matter how many zeros you're working with or working towards, the problems and the challenges are pretty much the same, aren't they, Lee, in business?
Yeah, completely. You know, the larger companies, and anyone who's worked in them will know, you're in departments, you're in sections. When I was doing the COO chief of staff roles, you're effectively running that department as a business. So it has all of the same issues. You've got a finite amount of money, you've got a finite amount of resources,
Yeah.
you've got to get stuff done. You know, the only difference is that you plug into this bigger whole function and organization. But yeah, very similar. And actually, we forget that at its core, regardless of size, business is human. And so you're still just dealing with the human elements, albeit on a larger scale.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that's easily forgotten. And I think often as well, those that are solopreneurs or have those smaller businesses, they kind of see themselves different and separate. But actually, when it comes down to it, it's the processes, it's the systems, it's the things that we do every day. And that doesn't matter the size of your company, does it?
Not at all. And actually what I find, and I'm sort of putting together this thesis as I work with people, is that the perceptions that we have of those larger companies and that growth and how they achieve growth can really impact our ability to grow our own business. You know, what I say to clients is if you're sitting there kind of sneering at corporates and thinking, oh, look at them with all of that, why would you then grow a business to look anything like that? Why would you, if you've got this perception that big business automatically becomes this unworkable monster, then you're going to change your strategy to make sure you never achieve that. Even when the words coming out of your mouth is that you want to, you know, create the largest companies possible, or, you know, you want to be the next Jeff Bezos. If you've got a negative perception of what a big business does, you're not going to try and get there very quickly.
No, and that comes down to mindset, isn't it? And I don't know about you, but I think mindset plays a huge part in our ability to grow businesses. And you've used that word grow and growth a few times, and it's certainly in here. When we talk about growth, Lee, what is growth? Because for me, I always say growth is something different for everybody, and that's okay. But what's your sort of take on growth?
It is completely different for each individual, and we can get a very murky picture based on what we're told on social media or listening to other people. So if you listen on social media, growth is number going up, right? It's more money in the bank, it's yachts, it's supercars, and whatever. For a lot of people, growth is security. Like, I can pay my bills, I can take my family on a nice holiday. I'm not worrying about where the next amount of money is coming from. So when they're growing in the wider scheme of things, a small company. So they're not looking to get big, but for them, that's massive growth. There's also the element of many people start businesses not really knowing if they're going to be able to do it. So, they don't have the skills, they don't have the experience. So it's a huge challenge for them. And I think we miss that, being able to go through the process of trying to build and grow a business actually grows ourselves at the same time. And for some people, even if the business itself doesn't really get off the ground or get going the way they wanted, their personal fulfillment has massively rocketed because they've never thought they were even capable of this. So growth starts with, what does it mean to you? And I think with my clients, that's what I try and focus on. Like, there isn't one definition of anything, it's how you define it. And then my job is to kind of help them get there, regardless of whether I think that there's a different path. I want to take them on their path, not one that I think is the right one.
Lee, that's why you and I love chatting to each other, because we
We
think the
do.
same. While you were talking there, and this is slightly off on a tangent, but you and I met through a networking group called Only, or Only, as some people like to call it. I think I must be the common version with Only. Um,
I say only.
I'm glad it's not just me. So you were one of the talks of the month. And
Mm.
one of the things you covered within that from memory was this difference between being self-employed or a solopreneur and a business.
Mm.
Can you just touch on it, if you can remember that bit, and I'm sure you can.
Yeah,
Can you
no,
just touch
that's
on that
fine.
bit? There's a difference, because I found that really powerful. And what it did is it helped me switch on what I really want, and was,
Mm.
even for me, what, 14, 15 years on, and I think it was it might have been earlier this year that you
Mm.
did it, made me go, oh, okay, so I don't need to be chasing all of this. So even I had fallen into the trap, but with that little explanation and that talk, which, let's face it, it's only about 20 minutes long, you know,
Yeah.
it was really powerful. So can you just touch on that for me, please?
Yeah, so I think when I talk to a lot of very early business owners, and when I say to them, like, what are you trying to grow? They tend to fall into two camps. The person who, effectively, the business is them and them they are the business.
Yeah.
They don't they don't want to hire people. They want to achieve a certain level of revenue, varying degrees. Some want to be millionaires, but still without hiring people.
Yeah.
They want individual, independent money coming up. Uh, Most importantly, when they stop doing the work, they just assume that the business stops, right? So it's their work, it's their effort. That's what I class as self-employed.
Yeah.
Okay, you are responsible for getting your own revenue, but your strategy is about getting your next piece of work. It's not building something that effectively is independent to you.
Yeah.
When I talk about building a business, it's that independence. It's building a structure that you leave behind afterwards. So you do employ teams. You imagine handing over elements of the business to other people. Your idea of growth is much bigger than one person could handle.
Yeah.
Now, what happens is both those kind of people read the same stuff on the internet about, you could only succeed if you do this,
Yeah.
but that is almost always aimed at the business. So if you're a self-employed person who's quite happy to just look after themselves and build something that is personally fulfilling, financially fulfilling, gives them the lifestyle they want, but they don't have those bigger plans, there's a lot of guilt that comes along. and they feel like they're not doing it right because they don't want these other things. And I find a lot of my time is almost acting as the therapist to go, no, it's absolutely fine.
Yeah.
As once you identify in the right way, you still employ strategy. You still have to have the same core skills, but what you're trying to build is very different, and it really does take the pressure off.
Yeah, and that's what it kind of did for me. And I love the way that you talked then, even for the solopreneur or the self-employed person, you can still be a millionaire.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
it might be that you're not directly employing. I always think of it as the bricks and mortar and staff. You still may have consultants, etc., or you might have a VA or a bookkeeper or all those things. But that mindset and understanding, I think, which lane you're in really does make a difference. And
mm,
Lee, you're absolutely right. I mean, by the time business owners come to me, which, they're either 2, 3 years in or 4, 5, that cyclical part,
yeah,
they've quite often built a business that isn't even right for what they want. And that's
exactly.
because the information is aimed at those larger businesses.
Yeah,
It is aimed at those people who want to grow a business as opposed to self-employed. And I work with both of those. Thank you, Lee, for doing that. Now, back to the purpose of our discussion. Now, I always ask for a sort of I ask for a title, and I would say it's a bit work in progress, but I really like yours. So the Strategy Sat Nav, how to direct your business towards success. And then the first thing you wrote in your notes here was that strategy is more important than a business plan. So can we first of all talk about the difference between a strategy and a business plan?
absolutely. The first thing I would say is if you have a business plan, where is it right now? Normally, it's filed away somewhere and you haven't looked at it for ages, right? Which is the first thing about strategy versus plan. But the reason I call it the make it the sat nav is it acts as the perfect foil for what the difference is between the two. So if you're sitting at home and you've got all the time in the world and you've got maps galore around, you can identify, oh, I want to go to a certain destination, and you can research and you can look it all up, and you can figure out from the maps in front of you what looks like the best route. And you can read up about what you'd see on the way, but it's all storing knowledge for some future event. You can't drive with a map on your lap, right? I want to
Not
say I've
anymore,
tried, but
anyway.
only for legal reasons. No, I have not. Um, but once you're in the car and you're making the journey, you've got to try and remember everything that you read, and you can't. Equally, you may have thought, oh, that road looks like the most straight to my destination, but it turns out it's really rocky and rough, and there's loads of hills, and it's awful. You can't know until you're in motion. So for me, strategy is the sat nav version of that. You're still plugging in the destination, but you're understanding that on the journey, things will change. So it allows you to go, what do I think is going to happen? What looks like it's going to happen based on what I can see right now? How do I need to adapt? For some people, sitting in that traffic jam is the choice they make. I am not that person. If I hit traffic, I want to be detouring around it, right? So it allows us to understand that running your business doesn't happen just at the beginning and then you set this plan off in motion. It's something that has to be continually refreshed. And the more you do it, you learn that skill of, flexibility. You'll spot opportunities that you wouldn't have spotted if you were doggedly going after your plan. But equally, if things go awry, if you start having difficulty, a lot of people sometimes stay on the wrong path for far too long because they declared to their family that they were going to do this thing, or they went on social media and said that this was going to be their thing, and so they feel trapped in, well, I've got to do this thing because that's what I've said I'll do.
Yeah.
Strategy never looks that far forward. You always kind of know the direction of travel and where you're ultimately trying to get to, but it allows you to say, well, I thought that would work, but it hasn't, so I'm going to try something else. And it doesn't feel like that failure if we have a plan that we must look at. And most people, the only reason for having a plan is to get loans, to get grants, or if you work with like government organisations and want to bid for tenders, they normally need a business plan. I have spoken to those government organisations and asked why they need it, and it's not clear. It's just that they've always had one. So, most businesses won't need one, but you do need to have an idea of where you're going and what's the first few things you're going to do in order to get you there.
I think also it feels a little bit like the strategy allows you to learn on the way. The strategy allows you to develop on the way. Um, and that is business, isn't it? I always talk about business, it's the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I always say to my clients, I'm here for the good, the bad, and the ugly. And it's great when it's good, and I can help through the bad. But sometimes it is downright ugly in business, and it can feel hard, and we can feel lost, and we can doubt ourselves. But when we have a strategy, and I have my clients use 90-day plans because it's rinse and repeat, but we can learn from it. We can develop it. And I don't know about you, Lee, but what I see as well is when they first start doing it, one, they're really resistant to it. Yet I know if they follow a plan or a strategy, we will move forward because I know that from experience, and I know that personally and from other clients. But then I think the resistance comes because they feel it's quite rigid. And
Yeah.
that fascinates me. I'm like, but it's your plan and your business. So if something's not working, we can adapt as we go.
Yeah. And I always say, I find the whole process fascinating because I think what we see in real time when we're working with people is what they thought they want versus what they actually want.
Yeah.
So I will ask them, where are we going? What's our North Star here? So that we've got, because there's no point, to go back to my analogy, you don't just get in the car and start driving. You do have to have a rough idea of where you're off to.
That was good.
But the resistance allows us to have that question of, okay, so this is your plan, this is your choice, but you're resisting. So are you resisting this part of what we've agreed, or are you resisting what you're aiming for? And often there's this mismatch between what people want and what they're prepared to do to get there. And it's not there is no right answer, but it's an important tool for us to be able to use to go, okay, so one of these things is going to have to compromise. Are you going to suck it up right now and just do the thing that you don't want to do because you recognize it's for this greater good? Or do we change the greater good because actually you don't want to do the activities now, and the logical conclusion is that you can't get to where you thought you wanted to be? And this is why that sort of constant working with someone is so important. I get people who come once or twice, that's absolutely fine, but the real value, the real movement happens when someone comes into our sessions and go, oh, I didn't want to do that thing, but I knew you'd ask me about it, so I did it. And you go, did it work? And they go, well, yeah. It's like it's real resistance. But if all we are accountability buddies, great. As long as you're getting where you want to go, then that's fine.
Do you think, Lee, that part of the problem is because of social media, and not to bash social media, and I do have a love-hate relationship, mainly hate. I do feel that business owners, particularly those at the beginning of their journeys, are being sold this story that you can follow these 10 steps and wake up a millionaire, that you can do these other 10 steps and your business will work while you sleep or lie on the beach. It feels a little bit like the message around you have to do the work, and providing you do the right work at the right time, you will move forward and you will create that business, that success that you're going after. But I feel a little bit like there is a narrative out there still to this day. It can be quick, it can be fast, and you can have it in 10 steps.
Yeah, I think the biggest problem is business owners don't understand that 70 to 80% of what is out there as business advice is actually just somebody's sales pitch. So we end up with a lot of, you must do this, you have to do this is the only way. And it's not. because the reality of business, and I think this is why so many founders really resist getting support like we provide, because they think, well, you're just going to tell me something that, and I want to forge my own path. I want to make my own mistakes. And it's like, you don't really want to make mistakes. You just don't want them to be someone else's. And I totally respect that.
Yeah.
But there's so much out there that promises success, which is extremely dangerous because, pre 2020, we probably could have predicted quite well. After 2020, all bets are off, right? We still
Okay.
don't really know what the world looks like now. So you have to bear that in mind when you're then going out and telling people, oh, this will definitely work, because that's dangerous. But equally, I think it is that idea of risk assessment. This is really risky. I'm already out of my comfort zone. This person over here is telling me that if I do these 5 things, this will definitely work. And I don't trust myself, so I'm going to trust them. Sometimes that works and it's great. Often it doesn't work because it was never going to work. But they've got the ultimate get out of, oh, well, if it works, it was the plan. If it doesn't work, it's because you didn't do it right. And a lot of my clients, particularly this year actually, have been on these courses or in these communities and got to the point where they were feeling judged because they instead of going back saying, you told me this would work and it isn't, they got the response of, well, it's because you didn't do it right, or you've got to join this other program to get the real juice, and they realized eventually that they were being had. It's really tough, and I think the reason you and I bite the bullet with social media is because we have to counter these voices.
Yeah.
We have to be there to be able to say, you don't have to do it this way. There is no 10-step program that will work for every single person. The one person it will work for every single time is the person selling it, right? That's it.
Yeah.
So, give yourself a bit of leniency and take yourself off the guilt trip of, oh, everyone else is doing the right thing. Nobody's doing the right thing. We're all winging it.
Absolutely. Some of us have been winging it a lot longer than others, but we're still winging it. But that we're flippantly using the word winging it. But I think I've got a client that in 2026, she's giving herself permission to fail. And that's
Yeah.
because she's so desperate not to get it wrong.
Mm-hmm.
She realizes she doesn't do things. So this year, and she's not not going to risk her house or anything, but she wants to have more fun with her business and she wants to be more open to failing. And it's not that she's open to failing, it's open to it not quite working so she can try something else or try, she wants to be more curious. And that's an amazing place to be, I think, because the world tells you or social media tells you have to do this and you have to be up at 9 o'clock, or you have to be at your desk by 9, up by 5, to the gym by 6, and all of those things. And I really think that we're sold this dream, as you rightfully say, worked for that one person.
Yeah.
And they're now selling it and peddling it out to you. And the other thing, Lee, I don't know where you stand on it, but particularly for women, and you and I don't just work with women, we work with women, men, and I work with couples in business. I time and time again, what I see is they have this incredible vision, particularly women, an incredible vision. This is where they want to go. This is what, and that's good, that's clear. But where they're at, their business model, their mindset, etc., is quite a big jump. But then throw in that they're a carer, whether that's children, whether that's elderly parents running a home, disabled, whatever those things are. And I want women to know that, or men, or anyone that applies to, it's okay not to do it in 10 steps. It's okay not to do it in 10 months. If you have to do it a little bit slower, but it's consistent. It's growth that happens consistently and in a way that feels good. That's okay too.
Oh God, yeah, absolutely. I think for particularly for female founders, that we're also against this tsunami of expectation and assumptions, right? It's this idea that um, we shouldn't want too much. So growth is fine, but don't go after too much growth. Um, Women only spaces are a fantastic way to sort of learn your confidence and feel supported, but the real money, the real success is out in that main arena where there are men that you're going to have to deal with. That's why I work with both, because I find that sometimes we play it safe by creating women only spaces that doesn't encourage people to then go out and take what they learn in that space out into the larger marketplace.
Yeah.
And there's just this expectation of just be satisfied, just be grateful, and it really does just merge the idea of success with something that's almost unseemly for women to want.
Yeah.
And that, again, it gets in the way. So the people, when they then have that growth strategy, when they have that ambition, I think some of that need to move quick is because they're trying to like outrun all these people who are going to be telling them not to do it. And yes, completely understand that men have many of the same pressures, but I don't think it's quite as systemic as it is for women. I was doing a workshop recently where I was talking about the differences between a founder and an entrepreneur. I won't bother with the details, but uh, I had examples of entrepreneurs or business owners, and I was asking, like, if you look at this person, do you think of a founder or do you think of an entrepreneur? I could find one female founder who I could be relatively confident that they all knew, against
I see.
a million other male. And I just think a lot of that is self-filtering and self-monitoring, that we shouldn't want that. And I'm very much, no, we absolutely need to be creating our own path and getting to those levels.
Yeah.
Yes, I totally agree with the speed. It does not need to be that quick.
Mm.
But when you're outrunning that mindset, that pull of people asking you, well, don't you think you've got far enough? Why do you need anything else? I think that is what people are trying to outrun, which is why some of the programs to get there quickly seem so appealing.
I wonder also, because I was talking in the preamble when we were just chatting, I mentioned that I'd been spending a little time on LinkedIn, and there were all these suggestions of people were coming up, and they were like half my age, and they were glamorous, and they looked like they just stepped out the salon, and they did not look frazzled. I've had to like somehow
Mm.
get a husband out of the door and two teenagers out the door, and make sure the house is like relatively decent so I don't fall over anything. I know what's going on for Christmas and all those other things. I think they haven't had to do any of that. And I think that becomes this piece around, and so I'm really fascinatedly, and maybe there is a whole podcast for you and I somewhere that actually is around those of us who are older. So I didn't start my business till I was in my early 40s.
Yeah,
And I
yeah,
just think there is this difference as well. And I think for any, male or female out there who is later on in life starting a business, one, I think that gives us a lot more life experience. There's lots of pros to doing that, but do
yeah.
not be distracted by the youngsters that are coming behind you or seem to be overtaking you. And it was when you were talking about that race that really came up for me. We can't race them. We don't have the energy. A lot of them are still at home. They don't have the same, financial
Yeah.
responsibilities as we do. So actually, instead of outracing them, we should be seeing what we can learn from them, and they should be seeing what they can learn from us, because there is space for us all. But yeah, I did feel that this morning. I was like, oh, for goodness sake, I don't look anything like that in the mornings.
No, I know the feeling. I mean, the reality is those type of people are not on your feed because we're busy doing everything else.
Yeah.
And I think my previous post, I haven't posted for months, and it was literally I had 5 minutes somewhere to put something up there. it was almost like a proof of life rather than a post. It was just, I am still here.
Been that bad, just proof of life. I'm still here, people.
Yeah. I think also talking to my children, they have grown up with content. They will sit at the dinner table and they're snapping with their friends. And whereas we think, oh, somebody's taking my picture, I need to look a certain way and I have to, what's my best angle? Kids will literally just go, "Bleh," and it's gone. And
Yeah.
I'm fascinated by that because they live with this technology. Whereas I think we are the generation who we see the pros and cons because we know the life without it.
Yeah.
The people coming up don't know the difference.
No.
So I think a lot of it is that they're just so much more comfortable with the idea. I think also there's a much deeper topic around privacy. So, before social media, there was maybe 5 people in your life that knew your schedule or knew what you
Yeah.
were up to at any given time. And all of a sudden, we've got thousands of people who are aware of our every move. We recognize that as an invasion of privacy. I don't think younger people do because they've never had a life where
It wasn't.
everything's been secure,
Yeah.
and so it all leads to this idea of comfort in going out there. What's the harm? What's the risk? Whereas I think particularly the older people are very conscious of, yes, but what if the neighbours see my
Yeah.
post? What if members of my family see it? And we're just more conscious of it, and so we stop ourselves. I am seeing more people sort of post 50 realizing that there's that awful moment where you feel like 50 over the hill, done and dusted, and then you realize you've probably got another 20 years of work, and you think, oh god, my god, what am I going to do with that time?
Yeah.
And I think that's inspiring a lot of people to think, well, okay, it can't quite be the business that I would have in my 20s, but maybe there is some way of me kind of using what I know and all this experience that I've gained in a different way. And so we're starting to see more people, but constantly fighting that what will the neighbours think? How do I present myself?
When we were chatting earlier, I did mention the documentary last night that I watched. So it's 𝗂𝗏, Cancer, Courage and Me. And rather than the piece I'd made a note of in case I wanted to bring it, one of the things he talks about, because his cancer is terminal and he wants to raise that issue about what that means. And there was one particular guy he interviewed. He was on like 18 years terminal and he was like doing his best thing and out cycling with 𝗂𝗏. But what 𝗂𝗏 was saying was live every moment. And there was something right at the very beginning, and I won't get it right, but what his message was, we're all terminal. None of us know how long we're going to have. So we should really make the most of it. So I would say to anyone, if you want to start a business, start a business. It might not be a multi-million-pound business in the next 10 years. You might not want it to be. And whatever that looks like for you, it's all okay. And the other thing I think, if anyone took something away, as well as all the other fabulous nuggets that you have shared, Lee, is that, you don't have to do this on your own. And be very careful. We talk about this in the podcast that I have with my podcast husband, as I like to call him. We talk about this a lot. Be careful of who you counsel. Be careful of who you trust. Be careful, because for all the things you talked about earlier, Lee, there is so much out there that is just a sales pitch.
Yeah.
And it's quite hard to differentiate between them. So if someone is looking for not a sales pitch, but someone who knows their stuff, has been there, Lee, where is the best place for them to communicate, connect with you? I mean, LinkedIn, there is proof of life there. Is that one place to go?
LinkedIn is a good place to find me. I do loiter even if I don't post. So definitely have a look on there. But I guess I've got a platform called Advisor in Your Pocket, and I'm trying to give people a different place to be. where it's not how-tos, the 10-step programs that we talked about, but just how do you need to think differently to be a business owner. And there's a WhatsApp group associated with that as well. So advisorinyourpocket.com, it's free to join. There are sort of stages after that, but not necessary to get something from it. But yeah, you will find me loitering on LinkedIn. I won't ever quite lose the bug, but I might just have to get one of those newspapers that they used to put up in hostage situations. Like, is this a real photo of me?
And do you still have your podcast, Lee?
I do, but I'm having a hiatus at the moment. I've done season one. So it's called the Startup Game. And I wanted to create a space for business owners to talk about the quiet stuff out loud. We both have networking, and you have the sales pitch, the elevator pitch part of everything's great, everything's brilliant. But then when you get talking to people at a deeper level, you start resonating on, really small things, but as a business owner, feel very big things. And having a space to talk to other business owners to recognize that actually what you're feeling is exactly the same as someone else. And that it also started a lot from talking to a lot of new business owners, and this sense of loneliness, because we're all in our little box, whether that's on the kitchen table or in a bedroom somewhere, or we do have carer responsibilities, we have other things going on, and we can't always get out to meet other business owners. And there's a lot of small business owners who are really, really doing it on their own. They don't have the support that you would get naturally from being around other people doing that stuff. But also in some cases, the family aren't particularly supportive. And so I wanted to create somewhere where once a week you could go and hear a voice that reflected your experience back to you. And so, yeah, I did for the first half of this year. When we come back, which will probably be in the new year, we're going to take it video as well. So we've got the YouTube channel already set up, but we're going to be just having normal conversations with normal business owners, and kick our shoes off and have a good chat about what this really feels like.
Well, I loved being on that podcast. So I will make sure that all the links that you've talked about are below this video so people can connect with you. Lee, I know that you and I could talk forever on all of these subjects, because we are so passionate about people finding the support that they need when they need it, and the right support. But for now, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me, and thank you to everyone who's listening.